Nobody ever accused the comedian Bill Maher of pulling a punch, especially when it comes to politicians. Joining us now is the host of HBO's Real Time with Bill Maher. That would be Bill Maher. Bill, thanks for coming into the Situation Room.
It's always a situation every day, isn't it, Wolf?
It's funny how these things develop. Let's talk about the war in Iraq, first of all, because Democrats got the majority, in large part, I think it's fair to say, because they promised they were going to end this war, bring the troops home. That's clearly not happening right now. And there's a lot of frustration out there as a result of that. What do you think?
Well, they just don't have the votes. That's true. I guess we need another election to turn out more of the people who are basically keeping this war going. It's tough for the Democrats to explain that one to the American people, but that's the truth.
Is there more that they could be doing, should be doing?
Yeah, I guess there is, but, you know, what can you do with a situation where there's one man who stubbornly has the power and will not relinquish it? And he's such a liar, you know. I think that if he would just be straight with the American people instead of saying things like the people who are attacking us in Iraq are the same people who attacked us on 9/11. What a blatant lie. Or every month since January, we've killed over 1,500 terrorists and other extremists. Who's a terrorist? Who are extremists? Who are the enemy? What is this? What do these terms mean? Would they even be the enemy if we weren't in their country?
But you listen, Bill, you listened closely to General David Petraeus and Ambassador Ryan Crocker. Both are career professionals, career military officer, a career diplomat. They made the case effectively for President Bush that the U.S. should continue this strategy.
Wait a second. He put the words in their mouth.
But they say those words were their own.
Well, it was a White House written report. We know that. Yet Bush has an interesting little scam going. He also quoted in a speech on Thursday night Maliki, and he said basically that the Iraqi leadership is asking us to stay. So, in other words, he puts words into his stooges' mouths, and then he quotes them.
But let me just point out, General Petraeus, who's been a military officer for more than 30 years, the first thing he basically said out of his mouth when he testified last week is, I didn't show this testimony to anyone. I wrote it myself. I didn't have it vetted by the chain of command, not by the White House, not by anyone at the Pentagon, not by anyone in Congress. Don't you believe him when he says that?
No, I'm sorry, I don't. Because that report was, I called it the Enron surge report, because they manipulated the statistics the same way Enron did. It didn't count. Violence didn't count if it was a car bomb. It didn't count if it was Sunni on Sunni violence. It didn't count if you were shot in the back of the head instead of the front of the head. I mean, that's utter nonsense. They manipulated that report. Every independent report that came out about the surge contradicted what David Petraeus said. It said that the violence has not gone down. It just moved to different areas. It was never a case, Wolf, that we were wondering whether if we put 20 or 30,000 more troops in a certain area, violence would go down. Of course violence would go down in that area, but violence in the country didn't go down. And even Baghdad residents said, no, violence is as bad as it ever was. Is there a reason why 93% of the Sunnis in that country think it's okay to attack Americans, want us dead? 50% of Shiites want it.
I was going to say, here's one thing the Democrats could do, and some anti-war critics say they should do it. Just stop funding the operation over there. Use the power of the purse. They have the majority in the House and the Senate. Just stop funding the war.
Yes, I agree wholeheartedly. Stop funding the war. Make the case to the American people that if we stop funding the war, it's a different thing than abandoning the troops. This is always where the Democrats fall down. They're afraid to make the counter-argument, and that is the counter-argument, and it can be made.
Here's what Senator Clinton, Hillary Clinton, the Democratic presidential frontrunner, said on American Morning this morning when asked about the MoveOn.org ad that raised questions about General Petraeus. They called him General Betray Us. You remember the ad. Here's what she responded when asked about it.
I certainly speak for myself, and I am a very strong admirer of General Petraeus, his record of service for our country, the dedication he has brought to a very difficult job that many of us think does not have a military solution.
So you agree with her on that?
Of course. I mean, look, the Republicans who attacked that ad, it's very convenient. It gave them something to divert from the issue, which is that the war is a total mess, and it allowed them to excite their fake outrage base once again. But basically, they did it on a big lie, as they usually do. Hillary, in the hearings, said the report, the Petraeus report, required a willing suspension of disbelief. She didn't attack him personally, and of course they turned around and said, how dare you attack him personally? That's exactly the opposite of what she did. Hillary Clinton is a little too careful to attack a general personally.
Well, you admit it, you attack him personally. You just did on our show. Well, you said you don't believe him when he said he never cleared his testimony with anyone in Washington.
Call me a cynic, Wolf. Look, I understand that he's doing an impossible job over there, and I have no doubt that he actually does more before 9 a.m. than I do all day or perhaps all year. Yes, I admire anybody who's in the war zone, but that doesn't mean that he is not performing a political function for the White House. Now, you can read into that what you will, but I'm sorry, just because he's wearing a uniform, I can't not see what I see, which is that the man is doing a political job for George Bush.
You know, we were watching the Emmys the other night. You were nominated for an Emmy, and you had a clip that was shown to the viewers. I want to play that little clip, and then we're going to talk about it. Listen to this.
Real Time with Bill Maher, Scott Carter, David Feldman, Matt Gunn, Brian Jacobsmeyer, Jay Yarrow, Chris Kelly, Billy Martin, Jonathan Schmock, Danny Vermont, and Bill Maher.
You know, he's back, Larry Craig. He's came back to Congress today. He showed up for a Republican strategy meeting. He's still saying his intent is to resign, but it's not 100%. What do you think he should do?
I'd love to see him stay. I'd love to see him stay and run for president. I'd love him to take what's left of that party down with him. And when I say down with him, I don't mean any pun.